Neal Battaglia, saxstation.com. The other day I was learning a song by ear, and it wasn't the first day I'd started on this. It was actually a day that I'd come back and I was continuing to learn it. But I was trying to learn it and nothing seemed to line up. I was playing along and just none of the notes sounded right. And it actually reminds me of a comment I got on YouTube. There's a person playing soprano sax, and they said that basically all their notes sounded like a half step or maybe even closer to a whole step flat. And what I realized was that my saxophone was actually, I put my mouthpiece on like this, and I just carried it with me, and then I started to play, and I didn't adjust it to the usual spot where it goes. So see, there's kind of a lot of cork right there. Usually I have it more down here. So basically the position of the mouthpiece was significantly different. And what happened when it was up higher was that I was pretty flat. And if you're out of tune, then, and you're playing with someone who is in tune, then pretty much nothing's going to sound right. Like if you try and match a note, the notes just aren't going to match. So I was thinking that when you're a beginning saxophone player, if you're trying to learn music by ear and if you're out of tune, it's going to be hard to match up any of the notes. And that's not the only thing you have to worry about, but that is one factor in learning music by ear. You're trying to make what you play sound like what you hear on the recording. You have to get the inflection, the rhythm, the articulation, everything else correct also. But one of the kind of basic things is getting the same notes that they're playing. Then you get the same intervals. It matches up with the chords and the music and the tone and everything. If you are out of tune, though, that's one thing that can just throw you off. When I was playing and I hadn't adjusted my mouthpiece, I was just wondering what I was doing wrong because I knew I had started to learn this song and I was getting it. I was making some progress with it. But then when I started playing it that day, it just nothing sounded right. So sometimes it's an easy fix. If your mouthpiece is just kind of in the wrong position, if you just push it in, usually pushing it in is the correct thing you need to do when you're a beginning player. Beginning saxophone players tend to be a little more flat than they tend to be sharp. It's not always the case, but I think that'd be probably the majority of the time. If you've never checked your intonation using a tuner, you might want to try that. See if you're overall like a low note, a middle note, a high note. If you're consistently flat or consistently sharp, maybe make an adjustment with the mouthpiece. If it's kind of different depending on the range of the instrument, then you're going to actually have to spend more time and kind of figure out what you have to do for the different notes. And you need to like develop your ear too and be able to hear when you're in tune. So it might be pretty easy fix. Like for me that one day I just had to push my mouthpiece into the regular position that I usually use. It might be something you just need to be aware of. Maybe your high notes tend to go sharp, maybe your low notes tend to go flat, something like that. But it's not just a very simple adjustment. It's more something you have to be aware of, you have to think about, you have to develop and practice playing along with other musicians, playing along with chords and a rhythm section and everything. Yeah, when I saw this comment, it reminded me of that day I was practicing, and that even for me, like I was out of tune just by accident. I forgot to adjust my mouthpiece, and it really threw me off. And if you're a beginning saxophone player and you're out of tune, maybe you don't know you're out of tune, then it's going to probably be a lot harder to learn music by ear. It's not the only thing involved in the process of listening and playing what you hear, but it is one thing. And if it is off, then it's going to be kind of an obstacle that's getting in your way. I made a class about tuning. If you want to check it out, I get into some detail about how tuning on the saxophone works. You can send a recording and get some feedback and maybe what you should do to play more in tune. But basically playing in tune, it's not the only thing, but it is a pretty important thing. If you play out of tune, you can kind of sound sour. That's a word that my grandfather used the other day when I was talking to him. He was talking about hearing his brother a long time ago with a band concert. But it also kind of just makes everything not sound right. If you're listening to a recording where the person on the recording is in tune and you're trying to match it and you're out of tune, it's not going to match up. If you want to check out the class I made on tuning, I'll put the link below. And in general, you just maybe want to be a little more aware of your tuning and that it is a factor when you're learning music by ear.